Singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God, your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me.
Greetings, everyone. Just good to see you again. I'm Dwayne Brothers, one of the pastors at the Gathering QC, and thank you for joining us for another week here online for worship at the Gathering QC. And it is the end of March, last week of March. I am so looking forward to spring, which leads to summer, which leads to heat, warmth. And so I'm so looking forward to that. We're just glad that you have joined us and are with us again this week. Now, this is the final week of our series that we've been working through the Old Testament book of the book of Ecclesiastes. And some of you may be saying, thank goodness, this is a different kind of book. The theme of our series has been finding meaning in a frustrating world. And we're going to start again this week. This is the last one. And today we're going to talk about finding joy. But we're going to talk just a little bit by starting off with Ecclesiastes 1, a passage that comes from 12 to 18, where the writer of Ecclesiastes is giving a little bit of his biography. So let's just jump right into Ecclesiastes 1:12. It says, I, the teacher, was king over Israel in Jerusalem. I applied my mind to study and to explore by wisdom all that was done under the heavens. What a heavy burden God has laid on mankind. I have seen all the things that were done under the sun, and all of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. What is crooked cannot be straightened. What is lacking cannot be counted. And I said to myself, look, I have increased in wisdom more than anyone who has ruled over Jerusalem before me. I have experienced much of wisdom and knowledge. Then I applied myself to understanding of wisdom and also of madness and folly. But I learned that this too is a chasing after the wind. For with much wisdom comes much sorrow, and the more knowledge, the more grief. So he winds up, as he gives the introduction to the book of chapter 1, talking about life just being nothing new under the sun. He's bummed, and that's kind of what our theme today is about, is finding joy in a bummed out world. He's got wisdom and he's got knowledge. He said, I've set myself out to study these things, and I'm known to being a person of wisdom. Still, I'm bummed. I know of a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things. I've tried a lot of things. I've done a lot of things, and they still, in and of themselves, did not satisfy the deepest longing for finding the meaning that he has hoped for. So let me just start with just saying, what bums you out the most? What bums you out the most? Maybe it's something at work, since we spend a lot of our time at work. Maybe it's not as fulfilling as you had hoped. Maybe you're not as happy where you are, but yet you don't know how to get out of that particular workplace. Maybe it's your hours, maybe it's your pay, maybe it's your boss. Now, since I work at the church, I'm not bummed out about my work, but maybe some of you are. I think the stats that last time I saw were quite high of people that wish they had another job. Maybe what bums you out is something at home. Maybe it's just relationships is not as strong as you would like. Or maybe it's your house that aggravates you. Or maybe it's just the finances of your home that you're struggling with. Maybe it's your health. Or maybe it's someone you love, the health of someone that's struggling. We talked a few weeks ago about me struggling with the knowledge of what it means to be getting older. Not old, but getting older, and maybe you get bummed out that your knees don't work like they used to. I tell my students when I'm coaching tennis that I can beat most of them as long as I do it in about a 30-minute time period. It takes me about 15 minutes to get my body and my knees loose. I play pretty good tennis for about 30 minutes, and then after that, it is time to stop. So maybe it's just you're bummed because you recognize that health, doesn't last forever. I'll tell you, one of the things I get bummed about is I watch the news. I try to read the news, watch the news, because I want, and part of it is because I've gotten the ability to travel a little bit in mission trips and have friends around the world, and I get bummed when I hear of wars and lack around our world. I tend to keep up with a lot of the difficulties, poverty. I know people in other countries, and the work that we do with the Love Hope Project has given me the ability to, the joy of helping, and the joy of compassion, the joy of trying to be the hands and feet of Jesus. But when you do that, you recognize that one of the things that bums me out is the conditions that some people around the world live in, that there is such a thing as poverty, that there is such a thing as hunger, that there still is such a thing as not having clean water, that there is such a thing as political unrest and war, and even genocide in certain parts of the world. And frankly, I just get bummed about that kind of stuff. Well, that's the reason they call the book of Ecclesiastes, one writer calls it an unsettling book, because he's wrestling with just, the meaning of life. He's done so much, as we just read about, gained a lot, acquired a lot, but he's still searching for the real deep meaning of life. And we started off by saying that the book of Ecclesiastes is a reality monitor. It's not this happy, clappy book that everything is all okay, but it brings our feet back down to the ground. And we see right in our own scriptures, now this is important, right in our own scriptures, someone that is working through bummer issues right in front of us. He's trying to find purpose when it seems like life is kind of flying by us and we don't get to control. And so for that reason, it's called an unsettling book. Another writer says that we have to encounter it with openness to God, that God is still at work, even though we live in a bummed out world, and that we have to be open to change, that we can't control everything that happens, and that things happen quickly, and that we don't get to control everything that happens. So the writer of Ecclesiastes starts off meaningless, everything is utterly meaningless. And again, not that there's no point to life, but the word havel there means breath or wind, that life is short, life is hard to capture and control. Life is constantly changing. Life throws things at us that we enjoy, throws things at us that we don't enjoy. And so we have to come to grips with what it means to live a meaningful life in a bummed out world. And living a meaningful life does not entail getting to be more than human, because we're still limited. Even as Christians, we're still limited. God has set boundaries. We're not always in control of what happens. We do age and we do die. We don't get to stop time. We don't get to stop aging. We don't get to stop change. All of these things are what it means to live a human life. And so we don't get to control everything and control everything that happens to us in life. So James K.A. Smith said, as we've been talking about, that life is about learning how to wear our mortality comfortably, finding the boundaries of our life, but yet receiving those boundaries as a gift, and finding joy in the present, and learning to let go when we need to let go, but find enjoyment in living this life as a gift of God. So we've talked about trying to find purpose and meaning. We've tried to make sense of death and of living in a time, but today we're going to talk about trying to find joy. And I'd like to start again in chapter 2. We've run through a lot of the same chapters in numerous times and ways. But in chapter 2, I'm not going to read all of it. But after he gives this little bio about, he says, I count myself as being wise, and people see me as wise, and I'm trying to fill myself with knowledge, but yet still it was unfulfilling. He talks about how he tried to find joy in a lot of different places. Maybe you'll remember a little bit of this. He says in chapter 2, he says, come now, I'm going to test you with pleasure. And so he tries to find, just by giving pleasure. He talks about laughter, and he talks about cheering myself with wine and embracing folly. But still, he did not find the answer. And then he goes on in verse 4, and he said, I had great projects. I built houses for myself. I planted vineyards for myself. I planted all kinds of fruit trees and reservoirs. In other words, I built a lot of stuff for myself, and still did not find the true depth of joy. Then he goes on and talks about all the male and female servants and slaves, and owned a lot of herds and flocks. So he even had people serving him. Goes on to say, I've amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasures of all the kings and provinces. And so he had lots of wealth. He goes on to talk about his harem. He had a lot of women. And then he says, I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. So he had power. So he set out and he looked back, and we're assuming he's looking back at his life, and now he's trying to look over it and trying to discover why he does not have joy. He's had a lot of stuff. He's had people serving him. He's got all that money could buy. He's got women. He's tried laughter. He's tried wine. He's a powerful person. But then he ends that section by saying, I denied myself nothing my eyes desired, and I refused my heart no pleasure, but everything was meaningless still. In other words, life was still short and full of wind that I just felt like I still don't control it. It's a chasing after the wind, and nothing was gained under the sun. So still there is this sadness to the writer, because he says, I've done it all, and it did not fulfill. And so this section, just a paragraph down, says this. And this is kind of where it seems like he hits bottom as he's looking back at the things that he's done in life. In chapter 2, verse 17, it says, so the NIV translates it this way. So I hated life, because the work that is done under the sun was grievous to me. All of it was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. I hated all the things I had toiled for under the sun, because now I just must leave them to the one who comes after me. What do people get for all the toil and anxious striving with which they labor under the sun? All their days, their work is grief and pain. Even at night, their minds do not rest. And this too is meaningless. And so this is kind of the bottom for him. He's looking back at all that he's acquired, and he says, you wonder what's going on in his mind when he uses such a strong word. I just hated life. Now we're gonna turn that, because this week is about joy. How to find joy in a frustrating world. Now let me just say, this is what makes Ecclesiastes a difficult book to read. Because the writer is absolutely going to turn some of this on its head. When he's talking about life is meaningless, life is short, life is out of control, life is that I hated all the things that I have. He's actually using kind of hyperbole to describe the depth of his desire to find out what life is about. But then he's going to suggest the right way to look at it. So if you don't take the book as a whole, you'll come away pretty depressed. But he actually, at the ends of most of these sections, he includes a portion of what he has discovered that actually brings joy in life. And it's not stuff, it's not things, it's not wealth, it's not power. And he's going to talk about how to find joy. And he does that at the end of chapter 2, verse 24. He says, a person can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their own toil. This too, I see, is from the hand of God. For without him, who can eat and find enjoyment? To the person who pleases him, God gives wisdom and knowledge and happiness. But to the sinner, he gives the task of gathering and storing up wealth just to hand it over to whoever pleases God. So this too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. So notice a couple of things that he says. He says everything is meaningless unless you put God right in the center of it. You see that even toil, so he's not against toil, he's not against hard work, he's not against working hard to have things, but he says if you're just working in order to get stuff, that's not going to go very deep as far as meaning and joy. You've got to put the center of it, God at the center of it. And surprisingly, there's about 3 more instances where he uses the term joy or enjoyment. So this is not a downer book. This is not even though it's okay to feel it. That's the reason the book is here, is so that we can feel it, that we can keep our feet on the ground, that there is challenges. There is a mysterious side of life that we we have to expect the good and the bad and the laughter and the crying and the mourning with the dancing. You expect all of that. But when it's all said and done, he sprinkles these nuggets of living joyfully in a bummed out world. Let's look at at least three other occasions where he uses joy. One of them is Ecclesiastes 8:15. So he says, "So I commend the enjoyment of life, because there is nothing better for a person under the sun than to eat and drink and be glad. Then joy will accompany them in their toil all the days of the life God has given them under the sun." Again, he's not against toil, he's not against work, but he says you've got to couch all of that with thanksgiving and with a heart of gladness and understanding that God has given you these days to enjoy. They don't last forever, but you come at them with an attitude of joy. Then Ecclesiastes 9:7 is where he says this: "Go eat your food with gladness. Drink your wine with a joyful heart, for God has already approved what you do." Now again, he's talking about turning that heart of feeling empty and that you haven't discovered true depth of meaning and purpose and joy. Turn it with gladness. Eat your food with gladness. In other words, even the little things, like being glad for the food that you have, do it with a joyful heart. And then he says, the NIV translates it, "For God has already approved what you do." Now, what we assume this means is God has ordained joy and gladness and goodness. He has ordained that you live, even if it's a simple life of just giving thanks for what you have. God ordains that. God is not a hard taskmaster that wants you to live miserly and meagerly and harshly and without joy. He says, no, go eat your food with gladness. Drink your wine with a joyful heart, because God's already approved it. Because God ordains joy and gladness and goodness that comes from his hand. And then the third instance where he uses joy is Ecclesiastes 11:9, and he's commending it to the young. He says, "You who are young, be happy while you are young. Let your heart give you joy in the days of your youth. Follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eyes see, but know that for all these things God will bring you to judgment." So he's telling the young people, he said, have fun, live joyfully, play hard. But he goes on and then says, not recklessly and not sinfully. Again, he puts God at the center of it, but with a whole heart that lives wholly for God and with God. And so there is at least 3 different occasions to where he turns this book that has a lot about meaningless, lack of control, feeling like bad things occur in life, but then he turns it and says, find joy in the midst of it because God is in the midst of it. So there's a couple of things I want to mention before we close today. The first one is that joy in life comes from giving thanks for all the gifts of God. There's a couple of passages where he talks about all of these simple things that we have. They're all gifts of God. And I started listing through some of the different things that I have in life. And hopefully, the song counts your many blessings one by one, and just kind of remember to slow down and remember that every good gift that we have, it says in the book of James, comes from the Father above. Every good gift comes from the Father above. And the real trick of finding meaning in life is to slow down enough and to recognize putting God at the center of your life, that he is the one that breathes life into even the mundane things of this world. That joy in life, the key to it is giving thanks for all the gifts that God has given us. The breath that we have, the health that we have. I started thinking of all just the tangible things. Thank the Lord for the house that we have, the warmth that we have in this wintertime that we have in the house. We don't have a huge house, but it is such a comfortable house. thank the Lord for what we have. That, I've got an old car that gets me from point A to point B. Thank the Lord for a transportation that allows me to work and allows me to do what I need to do and allows me to go and be with friends. There's a lot of tangible things. Think one of the tangible things I give thanks for, look at the books. He's given me the ability to work and enough money. Don't tell Kathy I bought all these books, but just the intangible things of books and that I get enjoyment out of. So give thanks for all the tangible things around you because they are gifts of God. And then the second category might be relational things. Give thanks for the people in your life. You have to stop, and we can run through life, and you can start from the center. Maybe your spouse. Thank the Lord for Kathy. What a wonderful gift she is. For my children, for my grandchildren, for friends. Have some dear friends that mean so much to me. And again, I need to stop and give thanks because they are a gift of God. Just thank the Lord for all of these relationships that God puts in our life. And then we could talk about spiritual things. Thank the Lord for the moving of the Holy Spirit in my life, the way He grows me. Thank the Lord for our church that gives us a place to worship, gives us a place to have relationships and fellowship, gives us a place that we can grow. This is a gift of God. Don't take it for granted, but this is a gift of God. And then I put down maybe an experiential category. Thank the Lord for the mysterious way that God kind of leads me in this experiential day by day of meeting new people, new experiences, new opportunities. Getting to one of the experiences that I have had over my life is getting to travel. I remember mission trips. I went to Turkey and went to Haiti and now to Zambia, different places around the world. All these experiences. Getting to coach tennis is one of the just one of the events of my life that I've just didn't know that I would enjoy it as much as I do. Hanging out with the young people and enjoy the game and enjoy it. It's one of the experiences that I just give thanks to God that I've been giving that opportunity. So joy in life comes from giving thanks for all the gifts that God has given us. Tangible things, relational people, spiritual things, experiential things. They all come from the hand of God. This is the key to joy. And then the last thing I want to mention is that joy comes from just doing good. Now, it's not just about us having joy and getting all the things that we want. But remember the verse from chapter 3, we read it over and over again. He says, I've seen the burden God's laid on the human race. But He makes things beautiful in His time. He set eternity in the human heart so no one can fathom what God has done from the beginning to the end. We don't get to control everything. But He said, I know there's nothing better for people to do than be happy. There's the joy. And to do good while they live. Joy comes from doing good. Not necessarily, and it is being good, but He says doing good. In other words, joy is not, and again, like we talked about meaning, I think it was 2 weeks or last week, joy is not just something about me down deep inside, but joy comes from doing good. Not only receiving the good things of God, but sharing the good things of God. Doing good to people, serving people, loving people. One of the greatest joys, again, I say it over and over again in my life, is being able to find a niche of the Love Hope Project where we're able to have friendships around the world and we're just able to try to bless in some way. It's been such a blessing. We don't need to overcomplicate life, but joy comes with turning the difficulty and the troubles that we might see, the burdens, as the writer of Ecclesiastes called, turning those burdens and recognizing that life is not always easy, but finding the space to open our hearts up for thanksgiving and praise. Joy is about giving thanks for all the good gifts of God, and joy comes from doing good. It comes from finding a way to take the blessings, the hands and feet that God has given you, and to be a blessing to others. Don't complicate it. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, and your strength. And this is the second commandment, Jesus said, is just like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. So I pray today as we close this book of Ecclesiastes that hopefully this has not bummed you out. But there is a reality check in the book of Ecclesiastes that we can't over-expect that we come to Christ and that life is a breeze. No, Ecclesiastes won't let us settle for that. There are issues, there are challenges. But in the end, at the end of each section of all the challenges that he talks about you can do nothing better than to put God in the center of your life. Give thanks for all the good gifts that he gives us. Every good gift comes from the Father above. And it comes from just opening up our hearts to others and doing good, being the kind of people God called us to be, and doing good to others. That is the way to find joy in a bummed out world. Just letting God use you to the max. And that is where life comes from. And that's the way God designed us. I pray that you'll find that kind of joy and that kind of purpose and that kind of meaning in your life through giving your life to God through Jesus Christ. I pray that for you. Father, thank you for your love and your grace and all the good things you give us. We give thanks today as we discover the joy of living for you. Amen and amen. God bless you today.